Now, obviously, Vivek Ramaswamy, he got single digits and he went, that's it, I'm out. But he straight away endorsed Trump in the same speech as when he was pulling out. He wasn't sort of waiting a day or two to negotiate a position as the Transport Secretary or any of that garbage. And interestingly, I reckon one of the reasons why we got quiet Trump, charming Trump, as you referred to him on your radio show on Sirius XM today, is because I think that Haley and DeSantis are being offered 24, 48-hour amnesty to quietly fall in behind, or we're going to completely torch how voters feel about them, not just in this election, but in future elections.
That's an interesting theory. It could be. And look, they have nothing to lose at this point. They know they're not going to get this nomination. They may be thinking, I want to be second in line just in case he falls apart. But that, too, would require Trump's endorsement. That, too, requires Trump to say, OK, I'll pass the baton to you in this imaginary world in which he's sitting in a prison saying, gee, I guess I can't do it. Who do I pass the baton to? All of this is make-believe. So it's very hard to tell somebody who's losing that they've actually lost and it's time to throw in the towel when they've given it their all. Vivek, he had no chance. I mean, it was over for him a long time ago. This was just a name-building operation for him, and he's done that. He can check his box. He can have a more successful podcast or whatever it is he's looking to do right now. You know, he never distinguished himself from Trump anyway. So what was the downside in saying, yeah, guess what? Surprise, I'm Team Trump. It's like, we knew all along. And now there's a lot of chatter, Paul, about whether Nikki Haley has some sort of momentum not to become the nominee, but to become the VP nominee over the strong objections of hardcore MAGA.
Yeah, hardcore MAGA not having it. And if they think they're running the table, well, most likely they're going to get what they want. Also, what about MSNBC? It is fun to watch super lefties explode when Trump doesn't just do well, but he flogs the rest of the field. And of course, it's all to do with racism, sexism, homophobia, misogyny, evil Christians. What about Joy Reid last night?
I mean, it's the elephant in the room. She's still a brown lady that's got to try to win in a party that is deeply anti-immigrant and which accepts the notion that you can say immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country.
Joy Reid and others suggesting the reason the Republicans are never going to get behind Nikki Haley is because she's brown. She has brown skin, and the Republicans hate people with brown skins. They hate the black people and the brown people. Everyone knows this, and that's why Nikki Haley, who was governor of a deep South state, who was made UN ambassador and who, is atop the polls after Trump right now, is secretly loathed by Republicans. I don't quite follow the rationale. And then the other commentators over on MSNBC were talking about how the real yesterday, even though Trump was 51%, it was bad news for him. Bad. Because he's only at 51%. And, the former sitting president only got 51% of the vote. Can you imagine Barack Obama went back in there and ran? He wouldn't get 51% of the vote. Okay, that's Barack Obama. Well, let's talk about reality. Your president right now is Joe Biden. And 77% of the country thinks he's too old, including over 60% of Democrats think he's too old. 2/3 of Democrats think someone else should be running. How do you think his poll would go if you people would allow a primary, which you won't? Right? Are we actually pretending that, I realize the Republican Party doesn't entirely want Trump, but more Republicans want Trump than Democrats want Joe Biden. It's just the Democrats are a lot more effective at keeping people out of their primary.
And remember when Iowa had the chance to vote in 2020, Joe Biden came fourth. Remember, his candidacy was dead until he was able to do a deal in South Carolina. And then once he won South Carolina, and because African-American voters are the main ones that will end up voting in southern primaries, he ended up stitching together the wins that Trump is about to do as well. So please, they don't even remember their own history. But also, I love, let's also call a spade here, right? Which is, even if Nikki Haley became the nominee, they would pretend that she was Trump in a skirt. These were the people who said that, remember, Mitt Romney, boring boring Mitt Romney had binders full of women when, of course, he was referring to the amount of CVs that he had of female executives. Remember when John McCain was, the devil incarnate, and then when he ended up losing, he then became the Lion of the Senate. Anyone with an R next to their name, even if they were the exact identity politics MSNBC wants, well, they'll turn around and say that, that they're not really authentic, or, what's the racial term? Coconut.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, they'll 100% they'll do that to her. They would do it to DeSantis. They do it to any of these candidates. And this is why I think so many Republicans favor Trump, because they see what a fighter he is. They see how he's got this weird innate ability to smack down these attacks time and time again. I mean, who among us would be standing on their feet able to smile and crack jokes when we were facing 4 criminal indictments in the next year by these rabid prosecutors who want to throw us in jail for the rest of our lives? Most of us would have crumbled long before now. So I think, most of the Republican Party is looking at Trump saying they're going to do this to everybody. They'll make everybody into the devil, for sure. There already were headlines about DeSantis saying he'll be even worse, even more dangerous, more of an authoritarian, more of a dictator, more of all the terrible things than Trump when they thought he was catching fire. And they'll do it to Nikki Haley in a different way, too. And they look at Trump and think he's the only one who knows how to fight them. He's the only one who has fought them super effectively. DeSantis did well on COVID, but that's one. Trump's taken them on every level, on every subject, and doesn't seem fazed in the least by them. So I get the feeling that he's got the steely spine, and he might be the only one who can fight them.
You've got this incredible story about a lady who filmed herself getting fired. I'll get to that in a second, but I do want to ask one quick last one about Trump, and it's sort of two-pronged. The Supreme Court will hear oral arguments in early February about whether or not states like Colorado and Maine will be able to knock him off the ballot. I know that you've said in the past that you think this thing can be beaten 9-0, that it won't stand up. But isn't this the same in the Supreme Court that constantly says states' rights all the time?
Yeah, but this is a matter of constitutional interpretation. So this is well within their purview. I mean, they get the final say on what the 14th Amendment is and means. And I don't think this is a hard one. And I think they'll find some way out of it without getting into whether he committed an insurrection or any of that stuff. They're just going to say, no, it doesn't apply to the executive, or there's several sort of out clauses that they could use to, get out of deciding it on those grounds. And I think they will, and they'll get rid of it quickly. I don't think this is a threat to Trump.
And then what about some of these dodgy prosecutors, the ones that either end up getting charged themselves with federal crimes?
This is my favorite story of the 2 weeks or 4 weeks now. What is it that we missed each other? My favorite
Too
story
long.
popped up. So Fani Willis is the DA going after Trump in Atlanta, Georgia. And she's one of those prosecutors who's like, it's all about her, like, I'm a good Christian fearing woman and I'm just doing my business and I'm just about justice and fairness. Well, it may be more complicated than that. Turns out that Fani Willis is allegedly having an affair with a guy she brought in as special prosecutor. Well, that's not ideal, all right? It's already a little hinky. And that guy happens to have been married up until very recently when they filed for divorce papers, and Fani Willis is named in the papers and is about to be deposed by that soon-to-be ex-wife's lawyers. Why is that? So Fani and her special prosecutor she's brought in and paying an exorbitant number have been traveling the world together. And the allegation is it's essentially on the taxpayer's dime because this guy's getting paid hand over fist to be a special prosecutor, $650,000 in the past year plus alone. Most of the DAs in her office probably make 60, 70 grand a year. He's getting 650 plus. And they went to Napa Valley together. They went to Jamaica together. They went down to Florida together. It's wonderful to be a prosecutor of Donald Trump. It pays big, and you get to be out on a lounge chair with a fun coconut drink. It stinks, and it creates, at a minimum, the appearance of impropriety, and very possibly an actual conflict of interest in which she now has a financial stake in this prosecution continuing, which is totally antithetical to the duties of a prosecutor who's not there to seek convictions. She's there to seek justice. So if the facts come out that he didn't do it, or this case looks weak, you're supposed to be the person who can say, the interests of justice are, I dropped this. But if you don't get to go to Jamaica anymore, if Napa Valley had such the tasty wine, I really want to get back there, but I can't afford it without the special prosecutor money this boyfriend of mine is getting, you've created a problem for yourself. So one of the defendants stumbled upon those divorce papers, which are now under seal, but weren't when she found them. She's filed a motion, and Fannie and the special prosecutor have both been asked about it. Neither one has denied it. Now Fannie's trying to play the victim and say this is all a racist plot.
Racist, of course. So
and
racist.
The special prosecutor.
Yeah, so racist.
I love the whole story.
Yeah, it is spectacular. All right, last one here. Somebody gets fired as a salesperson for a company but decides to film it.
Yeah, I'm going to stop you right there.
Sure.
So I started August 25th. I've been on a 3-month ramp, and then it was 3 weeks of December, and then a week of Christmas, and then here we are. I have had the highest activity amongst my team.
Is she the hero, or is the company, going to sue her for illegally recording something?
Okay. What this is about is whiny, weak, woke youngsters who don't understand how the world works. This woman finds out she's going to be riffed or fired. You know, the word must have gone around the company. They're calling people, laying them off. So she decides to set up her phone to tape the HR people as they come for her. And her piece of the conversation is all on camera with her trying to assert dominance as she's being fired by HR.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to need to stop you right there. I'm going to need an explanation as to exactly why I've been fired. And I dispute any allegation about my performance. And I need the specifics. I am demanding this. Right? It's HR. They don't give reasons anymore. Unless they have to by contract. This is the new thing in HR. They don't have to tell you why you're being fired. And they don't because they don't want to get sued, etc. So you have no right. You don't run the corporation. You're not in a position to make demands of the corporation. And she posts this, Paul. She secretly records this thing with 2 HR lackeys who probably don't even know why she's getting fired. They're probably just reading the script that the manager gave her, like, please fire this annoying person. Yeah. And so they're trying to do it. She's taping them and she posts it. Why? Because she wants to look like the victim and the heroine at the same time. I've been wrongly fired, and look at me asserting my power, demanding answers, and then holding corporate America responsible for the way they treat young people in this terrible economy. No, not it, sister. Almost everyone's been fired or didn't get a job that they really wanted or had a professional disappointment. And you know what the most of us do, what most responsible, mature people do? They go, they have a drink, they have a cry, they hug their loved one, they feel crappy for about a day, and then they pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and move on. They don't tape the outgoing employer. They don't try to blame someone other than, they don't try to look tough by demanding answers, and I will interrupt you so that I get the information I feel. You know what? Getting fired, getting a demotion, getting rejected from an opportunity is itself an opportunity for you. It wasn't a good match. And when you do things that are crappy to an employer, like tape them without telling them, you know what you do? You invite retaliation. What the company did, not the illegal kind, the justified kind. The CEO of the company then felt the need to comment on exactly why she got booted after 3 months. We can tell when you're crappy at sales right away. And guess what, sister? You were. So she went from being part of a riff where nobody would be like, oh, okay, maybe it was a budget thing, to, oh, she's bad. She can't sell. She invited it. You know what you do? You say it wasn't meant to be. Didn't work out between me and them. I don't know why I wasn't kept and others were. But it's a comment on me by a company that I could take to heart and ask myself, how can I do better? How can I try harder? How can the next time I not be the whiny, annoying one who tapes people, but the one who gets kept because I've worked so hard and I've been so good they can't ignore me? Instead of doing that kind of self-reflection, this generation goes right to victimhood and doing surreptitious, unethical, weird things like taping the employer. It's wrong. I don't like where society's going. And I really think these young people need to understand, work harder, do better, stop blaming others, blame yourself. Even if you don't feel that it's justified, it's empowering, and it creates a crisis. It creates an opportunity out of a crisis. It's really simple.
I agree completely. I couldn't help but think, though, if this is how she behaves as she loses her job, imagine the poor bugger who tries to break up with this woman at some point in time. I demand answers. When exactly did you fall out of love with me? What was the day that you turned?
You know what? You're going to get a boiled bunny if you do this to this girl. I don't recommend it. Stay away. Stay away.
All right, love you. We'll see you next week.